my name's Adam Moes. I'm a California state licensed acupuncturist, which is its own actual consumer affairs governed board, which is a very innovative thing. I think we're one of the few states that has its own acupuncture board since the 70s. And I've been in practice since '03, so I'm on my 15 years of helping people feel better by poking them with needles and giving them herbs such as, roots and berries and pieces of bark. And I can be reached online. My name's Adam, and I practice acupuncture at acuadam.com. That's ACUADAM.com for more info and more details about what I do. And this is it's really tremendously exciting to be rediscovered. The Chinese were onto this, thousands of years ago.
Like 4006?
4,000, yeah. The texts that I refer to daily are 2,000 years old, but they're based on an oral tradition that was much earlier. So we're getting around to it. And in the meantime, the medicine does evolve and does develop, in terms of addressing more the modern illnesses, the more the emerging problems. It's also developing as well.
My understanding is that meridians aren't some imaginary construct that if you put someone in an MRI machine and touch a sham point, it doesn't light up in the brain the same way if you touch an acupressure point. So they really are some kind of energy system that's meridians. How do you define them? What are they really? Since you work with them every day.
Yeah, they are channels of energy, flows of energy within the body, which have been scientifically demonstrated in terms of areas of increased microconductivity. Like if you're looking for conductivity between 2 points on the body, and you have a very fine adjustment, you can tune it in, and it turns out, that follows the lines of the meridian. There's these areas of conductivity. But amazingly, the organ system, the way our energetic transformation sustains us in our life processes, we can access through these channels which are on the surface of the body. Seems almost unreasonably convenient and awesome. It's like to access the energy, really go deep with the organ systems. Don't have to go in there. You just got to work with the energy on the surface of the body.
So when you're putting a needle into a meridian, you're making it get unblocked, unreversed, unstuck. How do you think of the mechanics of what you're doing?
Yeah, there's a number of different strategies. When we do an exam, we do a diagnosis, and then we develop a treatment strategy based on the diagnosis, what we're finding with the organs. Sometimes it means we want to supplement and we want to put more energy into the processes of a particular organ. Say, the digestive system is weak. Then there's points we select which are going to strengthen, tonify. What you were mentioning, there can be cases where there's just straight up blockages. Above that blockage, there's going to be an excess, like a dam. It blocks up, and then there's kind of like you open it up, you get it flowing again. Sometimes, we take energy out, pull some excess energy out. But body is really intelligent, and the healing power, we're always empowering patients to really take control of their own healing process and be a participant, active in their healing. And that's because the body wants to do that as well. If you give it half a chance, it'll try to regulate, normalize.
Do the herbs work on the organs directly? Is that how the herbs connect?
Correct. Yeah. There's different flavors. And
Bitter,
sour, astringent, spicy, and then there's different temperature values. And this is the biggest take-home thing you'll get from your Chinese herbalists. Your food, your drink, all of that stuff can be your medicine. You want to consider, what is the thermal property? Is it heating or is it cooling? And there's these herbs du jour. Everyone's like discovered turmeric. Oh, it's great. It's good for everything. Turns out it's also very warming. And if your condition is one of excess heat, too much turmeric might make it worse. Something that's moving and helps the circulation, which is cooling, would be a better herb to choose. So lots of different ways that we use.
What about an herb like ashwagandha that's an adaptogen?
Yeah.
So can anyone use something like ashwagandha?
Yeah, it's a good one. Similar like ginseng. But these are tonic herbs. They're kind of enriching the body. And if you're already tonified and you add more tonification, you get a little bit more congested. So you can over-tonify.
Interesting. And then one more question is, I love personality types, and the Chinese personality types are wood, fire, ether, metal, and what's the other one? Water.
Yeah.
What are you?
It kind of varies. I think I'm more like a earth. Yeah, more earth type.
I'm wood.
That's great. And it's your season is coming up. Spring is the season of wood, expansion and growth and new possibilities. And they say it can be delicate. If you're of that particular type, then when you're in your season, that's the time to really, work on your stuff.
Do you think it's a little bit like Ayurvedic types, Vata, Pitta, Kapha?
It is, and it's even more simple. It's just 2. The Ayurveda has 3 doshas. We got 2, yin and yang. So it's even more basic.
Great. You're going to leave us a little bit early because you're giving a talk about what at 7?
Interdependent origination of fantastic, like the essence of Buddhism. A little side, it's one of my sidelines.
It all goes together.
Yeah, it does.
It's all tools in the toolbox.
Yeah.
Okay. Randy Tenckhoff, Dr. Tenckhoff, tell us about why you became a chiropractor. And close to the mic.
Well, Dr. Gayle, I became a chiropractor in the 1980s because I went to a college career day, saw a woman chiropractor, and I heard what she had to say, and it just woke something up in me. So I started hitting the sciences, went to chiropractic college, and began my adventure in complementary healing. So as I became a chiropractor and married a chiropractor, we had a chiropractic practice together. Went through different transitions through that. I did quit my practice for a while to raise my 4 children. And as I came back into it, I started doing different types of chiropractic and was introduced to bioenergetic integration. And through that, through the chiropractic, I got involved with the Brennan. And I wanted to be able to do more than work with the physical body. I wanted to work with the energetic body also. And so I went through my Brennan training and got my Brennan Healing Science Practitioner certificate after the 4 years.
For people who don't know her work, her 3 books are really very detailed explanations of the energy field, the chakras, the layers of the aura. It's like a encyclopedia of the energy field. So,
well, Barbara began as a research scientist for NASA, And as she started using her research, along with processing through what was going on in her own body, she discovered the energetic field and the waves, specifically the scalar wave, and how we could balance that through working with our hands. And so she developed her energetic system. She, of course, has the book, The Hands of Light and Light Emerging, and had her schools that she was or has been training people.
She's retired now and
Yes.
with some health issues, which is always interesting when a health practitioner has health issues.
And yet we all have these vehicles called our bodies that we drive, and we don't want to judge one as less than just because it might have a bent axle. So
What's a scalar wave?
The waves that we have throughout our bodies, the energetic field that moves through, the scalar wave is one that runs a certain megahertz, probably they're finding around 7, but it just runs through the body, and when it gets knocked off, just as if you were watching a wave, you can see my
Right.
it through your hands, and through grounding you can then affect the wave in the other person by bringing your wave in alignment with their wave, and thus bringing them back into balance.
So are scalar waves everywhere? They're not unique to the human body? They're just part of the
Part of
field?
part of the field.
Okay. And what's bioenergetics?
It was actually, it's the biogeometric integration. It was developed by Dr. Sue Brown, who also is a chiropractor. And what she's finding is the fractals that exist in nature also exist in the human body, and by following that geometry that's in the body, you can adjust through the tonal integration also by following the energy. So if you look at the body as a series of triangles, the head sitting up top of this, which sits up here, which sits down here, there's a geometry to it. And by following the geometry in the body, you can see where it's knocked off, and you just go into that area, and by using the adjustment or the energetic wave, you can get the body to release in that area and then release the energetic field.
So you learn how to see with your mind's vision, your clairvoyant vision?
Well, through Barbara Brennan, the training, which is a 4-year training, is to develop your high sense perception. And each person's is different. Some people are visual, audio, have direct knowing, olfactory, all the different senses come into play. You learn to heighten those, then you learn how to discern, is this mine? Is this theirs? Is this their reaction to me? And so then if you look at the research study at UCLA by Dr. Virginia Lurt, she found that there are 5 things that determined will complementary healing work. And so it was the disease in the body itself, the modality used, the practitioner's ability with that modality, but most importantly, it was the belief system of the doctor and the belief system of the patient. Mm-hmm. So it is a full thing, which is why also I went on to become a religious science practitioner to develop further my skills of being able actually to see people as complete, healthy, and hold that vibration within myself while I'm working on them.
So they changed their name to Church for Spiritual Enrichment, right?
Well, you know what? It's gone through a couple of different things. Originally, this is work done by Ernest Holmes, who wrote The Science of Mind back in the 1930s. At the same time, Yogananda was going on, and we had this big blossoming of education opening up during that time. At that same time, that's when Emma Curtis Hopkins was teaching. She also influenced Ernest Holmes, but Bill Wilson, who developed Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you really look at the basis of a lot of these studies, they all have a lot of foundational pieces. And Ernest Holmes didn't develop a religion, but he developed a philosophy. And as all things that are really exciting happen, it came through and it broke into 2 parts, and now they've brought it back together. And now it's just simply called the Centers for Spiritual Living.
And is there 1 or 2 centers in Chico? There used to be 2.
There were 2, and they've pulled together, unified, just as the 2 parts of the Centers for Spiritual Living have pulled together since 2014, actually.
So if a client comes to you and says, I want you to work on my energy field, do you use chakras? Do you just close your eyes and tune in? Or how do you kind of diagnose what would be best for them?
Well, Gayle, first of all, I try not to diagnose.
Right.
Okay. Actually, when someone does come into me, I sit down with them and I start talking to them. And then I start looking at them. What do I see? And what am I hearing? Also, what are they believing? And I think you were going to address that also. Beliefs are a big piece of where it's going to go. And so through that, yes, through their history, I just start discerning what is happening. And people just don't happen to my door. People seek me out. And so I know those that come to me are those that I'm going to be able to help. And each person that comes is treated differently. And each visit is unique because the body is so fluid. Our experience on the planet is so fluid. We're always changing. So as we were discussing, you work on someone and the change is occurring as you're seeing them. So then the next time they come see you, they're presenting in a different way. So it is, I feel my part as the facilitator for their healing, to stay open and pure and not have any expectation of what to do, what not to do, and just allow it to unfold as it comes along, which might sound kind of namby-pamby, but there it is. What are you going to do? I can only do what I can do, and that's how I approach it.
So on our little minor theme of personality studies, Barbara Brennan used Wilhelm Reich's personality types. Which of those types are you?
Well, she used, and she followed pathwork with is where she got most of the 5 characteristics. And hers are let's see, you have,
which one are you?
I would be the schizoid.
Yeah. I don't like to use the words because they're so extreme. I'm a rigid.
A rigid. And then what happens is you have to realize what is your understanding of that word. In some circles it means one thing, in other circles it means something else. That's why, again, you have to really, when you're working with people, listen to the words that they're using and not put your own meaning and your understanding on them. You have to see what are they really saying.
But it is useful to know people's types. You're going to work differently with someone who projects their energy at people from someone who withdraws, or someone who pads, or someone who tries to be really good.
Well, of course you are. And in all of our fields, you would approach each person so uniquely because that's who they are, and that's who we are as healers, is to be able to hold that space and be that conduit for healing, not to inject our ego onto their healing process.
To me, what I tell people in my Mind Power workshop is the main principle of healing is what Native Americans say, to be a hollow bone. So
Yeah.
we're bringing in energy from the universe, and when healing gets mushed up, it's because someone's ego is involved and they're trying so hard to do a good healing job that they impose their energy in the person they're working with. I've experienced that, and it feels yucky.
Yeah, I learned that early in chiropractic. My earliest chiropractic teachers, it was Dr. Morgan, and he had been a LAPD officer and became a chiropractor. And that's what he said, you truly are just a conduit, a hollow bone, and you're not here to do anything but be that. And he said, take no credit, take no blame. Be pure, and it will work out as it's going to.
Mm-hmm. What I was trained in the Berkeley Psychic Institute tools, and what they said in doing clairvoyant and healing work is that you often attract people who have similar issues, which they called pictures. So part of the process for the healer is to have their own issues brought up when you see it in your client, and then both what they call blow your pictures.
Well, that's why we spent 4 years at Barbara Brennan, and it's extensive. What is mine? Let's talk about this issue again, because when you're putting your hands on someone and you're delving into their deepest hearts and you're getting into their secrets, you have to know what is yours, and you don't want to throw your spin on it. And where does yours stop and theirs begin?
Right. Yeah. Perfect. Last question for you right now. What was your thesis about for Barbara Brennan? You had to write a kind of...
Yes, my thesis was transposing the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous to not only the energetic but also a metaphysical understanding.
Interesting. All right, we could talk for weeks here. Dr. Shane Smith is also a chiropractor. Tell us about what led you into that field.
Well, it started with, I think just as a young kid growing up, actually watching just a lot of my family members get real sick. Had quite a few of them pass away, and it seemed like as a kid I would always go to hospitals and I'd hear more tests. I was young, and I'd hear the words more testing, death. I mean, that was kind of the cycle I saw often, and it was, it was just something that always stuck in the back of my mind. And as I went through high school and got into, I actually became a personal trainer kind of by accident. I moved into a new town, was looking for a job, and I said, man, I'll be a janitor. And they're like, hey, you want to be a trainer? And I'm like, sure.
That's more fun.
Yeah, they sent me to some anatomy and physiology classes, and it was the first time that I really latched onto a subject, and I just fell in love with it. And as the deeper I got into it, that history of growing up watching all my family members go through that, I was like, well, I got to get to the root of this and figure this out. And ultimately, it led me to chiropractic, based on that philosophy that, there's kind of a classic saying in chiropractic: the power that made the body heals the body. And through the adjustic thrusts, the adjustment actually happens in the body, but we're allowing the body to begin to heal itself the way it was built to do so.
And you kind of focus on the upper spine, the neck?
Yeah, we're called
Why?
upper cervical chiropractic. And the term upper cervical is just referencing the top two bones in the neck, C1 and C2. And we adjust them specifically because of their unique anatomy, their unique positioning to your brainstem, which is basically the center for all autonomic function in your body. And so the nature of what we do at the office is we use digital infrared thermography, and we're able to read basically the heat coming off of an individual, and we can detect if they're in what they call a sympathetic state, where basically if their fight or flight has been turned on and they're kind of stuck in that high energy mode, almost like if your foot is stuck on the gas pedal of your car, which is fine if you're going down I-5, but not if you're at a stoplight. And so essentially the body's almost like burning itself out. And so when through the exam, we actually can detect if they're in that state, and we try to get them to adapt through different tests that we do to see if they will, and if they can't, if they're stuck, then we take three-dimensional and biomechanical x-rays of that upper cervical spine to see how it's moving, and more importantly, how it's not moving. And then we design the adjustment around their mechanics. And so if it's fixated on one side, let's say it's on the left-hand side, it needs help going from the left to the right at a 3-degree angle, well, then we adjust them in that opposing direction. So on subsequent visits, we take those thermal scans, we see if they're in that state, we make the adjustment, we then have them rest for about 20 minutes in our little nap room, and they fall asleep often, and then we pull them out and we check them again, and we make sure that we got them into a state of adaptation to where their body can actually start to do work on its own.
So I don't understand how if someone is in a state of chronic stress and arousal, you can see it in a thermal scan. Is it like a color that you're seeing? That's stress color?
Not like a thermal scan like now they're using like for breast imaging.
Yeah.
It's not like that.
Uh-huh.
It's in a graphical representation. And so we're looking for a pattern. So we're looking for asymmetry, meaning the left and the right are doing two different things. And then we're looking to see if they're creating that same asymmetric pattern over and over and over again. Now we can tell if they're physiologically stuck in that mode, because basically the blood vessels that are allowing that heat to radiate off their body and give us the imaging, the tone of those blood vessels are solely innervated by the sympathetic nervous system. So we know if it's in an imbalanced state or if it's not.
And is it the chicken or the egg? Do the vertebrae go out before this and cause the stress, or the stress causes the vertebrae not to function properly?
That'll cause a long conversation. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to know that answer or not. What we do know is when the two coincide, that's when we can actually do some work on an individual. And that's what we use our examination to figure that out, if it's happening or not. And that's how we can tell if a patient needs our care or if they don't. And then on subsequent visits, we always will check them to see. And what's cool is once they start getting better, we need to adjust them less, and we can show them the graphs and say, hey, you're in a state of adaptation, or hey, you're in a true parasympathetic, nice and calm state. You don't need me today. And then we can send them on their way.
Do they put their hands like on a metal pad, or how do you measure their?
For now, we're using, it's just a scanning device. It's got two sensors, one on each side of the spine, and it rolls up the back nice and easy. And then it'll give us a graph of what we call direct. So the independent, basically thermometers on the left and the right. And then the middle graph will give us what's called the delta. It'll tell us how different the two sides are, and create a differential.
Interesting. So, in case you just tuned in, this is KZFR Chico, listener-supported community radio for the Sacramento Valley, the foothills, and beyond. You're listening to Ask Dr. Gayle, which is on the second Thursday of each month. Next month it's going to be Native American Indigenous issues, and I videotape the panel. So if you want to come back and go over it again, it's on my YouTube channel. Just search Gayle Kimball. And what's also on that YouTube channel is my latest obsession is researching visionary scientists. So I'm interviewing people who are parapsychologists, MDs, PhDs who are doing this new paradigm of non-materialist consciousness, and those interviews are fascinating. So if anybody wants to hear them, they're available on YouTube. Just search Ask Dr. Gayle, and that'll be a book eventually. Okay, and our next person, is a naturopath. So Ashley Olberg, tell us about how you became a naturopath. This is Dr. Olberg.
I knew that I wanted to be in healthcare, and had actually went to Chico State and was set up with pre-med at Chico State, and was well on my way and very excited about the path that I was going, until actually right after I graduated at 22 years old, I started to have a lot of physical symptoms, and was continuously going to different doctors trying to figure out what was going on with my body. I was gaining weight rapidly and struggling with sleep and emotion and everything else that you can think of that I feel like really is a big flag that something's not right in the body. And unfortunately, no one could give me any answers. And it was shut door after shut door. And absolutely, you could maybe try to come back and see the specialist who comes every once in a while, but they're not going to have any better answers. So honestly, you're wasting your time. And that was when I decided, okay, I've been on this marker for so long, but I just feel like I can't go into something like this and devote my life to something that doesn't have any answers for me right now. And so that was when I went on a path where I started shadowing every single person who would allow me to shadow, basically.
That's smart.
and just asking every single person, I'd love to know what you do and get to know you and just experience life and what life has to offer and what other people are doing, because that is really exciting. And so it was actually that path that led me to naturopathic medicine. And it was actually a dietitian. I was shadowing a dietitian, and she's a phenomenal dietitian, a brilliant lady and very sweet. And she finally sat me down and goes, okay, what is it exactly that you want to do? Because I don't think it is actually to be a dietitian. I said, well, let me tell you what my dream would be. And I explained it to her, and she goes, oh, honey, that exists. That's a naturopathic doctor. And so I went, a what?
Yeah, right.
I had never heard of that before.
Right.
I was raised, obviously, very allopathic medicine. And so I actually started researching that and fell in love with it, and I was so excited. Every door and window opened. And it was amazing how my heart just knew that that was exactly what I'd been looking for and what I needed. And it was perfect timing as well, because I happened to be in Portland and found the oldest naturopathic college, which is NCNM, now NUNM, which is right in Portland. And so after doing my research and finding that here the oldest school was right next door to me, I thought I have to go check it out. And honestly, I started there 3 months later. It was a whirlwind, because it was just, again, every door and window opened. It was so exciting to have such opportunity.
Did you figure out along the way what was causing your weight gain and sleeplessness?
Absolutely.
Do you want to tell us?
Absolutely. Yes, a part of it is I have multiple autoimmune conditions, one of which is Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is a very common autoimmune disorder of the thyroid. So that was causing a significant amount of my symptoms. However, I absolutely love and I'm fascinated by chronic viruses and chronic bacteria. I find that I really think that we are going to continue to learn a lot more about them and what they, the aspects of which they integrate into our body, and how we are mutating along with these chronic viruses and bacteria, which are brilliant. So I really try to give a lot of credit to viruses and bacteria. And
Some of them we need. I mean, they're part of our intestinal system, and
Absolutely.
they're part of our cell bodies. So
Absolutely.
It's interesting what a conglomeration of different creatures we are.
Exactly. And it's so exciting, because they can actually change our mood. They can change our depression, our anxiety, the health of our entire body is based upon our microbiome. But also it's exciting. Scientists now are realizing that viruses have machinery and they are actually able to splice into our DNA. And scientists are using these viruses in order to splice things that they want into our DNA. My thought is, well, that's exciting, but what does that mean? What have they been using that machinery for? Obviously, they made it for some purpose and have been using it probably for quite some time. Now we're using it to our benefit, but what potentially has that been doing with our DNA? For an unknown amount of time. And so I truly believe actually that my chronic Epstein-Barr virus is a big part of why my autoimmune condition started in the first place.
And I think that's the brilliance of naturopathy and other complementary medicines, is they don't just treat the symptom. They look for the underlying causes and try to correct and balance that. That's the brilliance of it to me.
Exactly.
So if someone comes to you that does have some kind of virus or bacterial infection that you feel is detrimental, how do you treat it? How do you balance it out?
That's the fun thing, is that it's incredibly difficult, and I really base all of it upon each person. Because there can be so many other influences that are playing a role with it, such as heavy metals. Heavy metals play a big role in depleting our immune system and allowing these things to take hold much more easily than if we didn't have heavy metals on board and the immune system was able to attack it as it normally would and be able to get rid of it, because our bodies are brilliant.
A lot of us who had amalgam cavity fillings do have a really high mercury load.
You got it. Absolutely. And we're exposed to them all the time. I mean, even the cosmetic industry finally came out and said, oh, yes, we've been putting lead in our cosmetics for a very long time. But you know what? Now we're realizing that might not be good for health, so we might take that out.
You think?
And I'm thinking, yeah, exactly. Wow. So we're just going to add this stuff in, and then maybe when it turns out bad, then we'll take it out. So honestly, there's so many different ways in which we're exposed to different toxins, toxic burdens, that we're exposed to on a daily basis. And if something grabs hold in the right way, it can really deplete us in a way that allows some of these things to take hold. So what I do when I'm looking at any kind of chronic infection of any sort is, well, what allowed it to take hold? And then what systems has it depleted? For example, I really look at the detox organs. Are the detox organs still able to
The liver,
detox properly?
the gallbladder.
Yeah, the skin. If they're not able to detox properly, then we're not going to be able to be too aggressive in our forms of killing off some of these microorganisms, which are going to release even more toxins into the body, until we make sure that, okay, these detox organ systems are out, which is why I love working with such amazing people in this community, because having someone like Dr. Shane or Dr. Tenckhoff, thank you, to have them to be able to help open up some of those systems and put the body in a parasympathetic mode so that it can heal, it can detox, and then we can get more aggressive with our forms of therapy. It's really exciting. I love working as a team, and the biggest team player here is the patient for me. And I always tell them, I want this to feel like we're a partnership in your health. We're doing detective work together, and I want to have absolute honesty and open communication, and trust is of absolute importance to me. Trust and feeling like your voice is heard. And I think a lot of that is also stemming from my journey and experience and not having my voice heard, and how frustrating that is. And so for me, I tell every new patient in our visit, which is 90 minutes, so that we can do our detective work together.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Not 15 minutes. Hurry,
Exactly.
hurry, hurry. Insurance company says go, go, go.
You got it. It's 90 minutes, so we can really sit down and go through everything together. And, and I always want them to feel like their voice is heard. And part of that is them getting to take control of what the treatment options are as well. So I try to give as many treatment options as I can that I feel are appropriate, so that that way they actually get to decide, this is what feels best to me and this is how I want to move forward.
Right. So you're listening to KZFR FM and listener-supported radio. Ask Dr. Gayle. Our panel, if you're just joining us, is about complementary medicine. We have a really amazing panel, and if you missed part of it, you can find it on my YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, Gayle Kimball. And another resource is every Wednesday I do chakra balancing, little mini intuitive readings, and other people do Reiki and Jo Ray. And that's every Wednesday. It's free. And it's from 5 to 7 p.m. at 1010 Mangrove behind Access Dental. It's part of Shalom Free Clinic's outreach. If people don't know about Shalom, it's totally free healthcare every Sunday afternoon. And no one is turned away. They offer food, and they have a psychiatrist the first Sunday of the month if people need mental health balancing. Okay, so Mr. Poe, there you are. You are the co-editor of the Lotus Guide, and as part of the newspaper and your radio work, you have interviewed a lot of these leaders in the field, of the new field of consciousness, rather than just looking at material as the only thing that is. And I'm wondering what you have found motivates them. What is there any patterns that you see interviewing these interesting people like Bruce Lipton, and you could throw us some names of people who you think are really leaders in the field?
Yeah, I think the thing that motivates most anybody that's pushing themselves beyond the boundaries of what normal people would see as the horizon of what they know is this insatiable desire to know, to simply know.
They're curious.
And curiosity. I mean, like
We're all nodding our heads. We're all curious.
It's like even sitting here. Sometimes I feel like I'm a magnet for smart people, but it's everybody sitting here. We're all driven to know. I mean, I am amazed all the time, walking down the street, that everybody's not out there going, what is this? Who am I? I mean, why
are we here?
Yeah. I was walking through the university one time, and this young girl recognized me. She comes up and she says, Rahasya, what do you think the most amazing thing in the world is that you've ever seen?
That's a good question.
Ever heard? I'm thinking, wow. Everything's going through my mind, ancient civilizations and UFOs. And I looked around, I said, no, you know what I think is the most amazing thing? Is that we're surrounded by people that don't think it's amazing at all. How do you pull that off without being on drugs or something?
Downers.
How does that happen? I mean, I guess being interested in the world started early with me. I mean, this goes back when I was 6 years old. I remember my Sunday school. I lived in West by God, Virginia. My Sunday school teacher was teaching Sunday school and telling me about Noah and the story. And I remember raising my hand and saying, wait, how big was this boat? And this seemed like a simple question to me, but it got me kicked out of Sunday school. He told my parents, I think he's too young for this class. And then when I was 10, I actually seen a UFO, with 30 other people, about 20 feet away. It was a cigar shaped, about 50, 75 feet out in the desert, big time. So it's opened my world to the fact that, I remember David Icke telling Dara and I one time at dinner, I said, David, what is it that I should always remember when I'm doing research? He says, always remember this. Everything that you've ever been told by well-meaning parents and adults, preachers, teachers, priests, professors, all of it, it's not true. He says if you start with that foundation, you're going to have a head start. You'll get through all the rubble and all the misleading misinformation and disinformation. And it's really true. I mean, as I grow up, I think you all are starting to see about the medical profession. It has its place. You break an arm, rush down to the hospital.
Appendix ruptures.
Yeah,
I don't want to use homeopathy.
They're good for it, but chronic, ongoing problems, they're not situated for it. The insurance companies aren't situated for it. They don't have the knowledge for it. They're just now really getting into nutrition and stuff. And I think Dr. Shane could probably speak to this better than I, but we're opening up the Lotus Guide Center for Healing and Information up in Paradise, and which is financially is the last thing we should do, but that's what I always do. When we started the Lotus Guide, we had enough money for one issue.
Wow.
That was it.
What year was that?
2004. So you have to step out into this world and just take that step out into the unknown sometimes, and that's what we're doing up here, but I know it will work out. I absolutely know it will. And the whole reasoning is we're getting together this group of doctors against disease to detoxify people. And Mike Gaines, one of the people that's working with Dr. Shane and a few others, they gave him $30,000 worth of supplements to give to the first 500 people that go through the center and be part of a detox research program. And that's just the beginning.
What kind of supplements? Or like vitamins and minerals?
I don't know.
Oh.
This is why I have smarter people than me around me. They can answer these questions.
Okay.
All I know is it's really, really, really important to detoxify the people up there.
Oh,
and the
fire.
water. We're going to be a distribution point for bottled water. Dara just redid her meditation CD, which is a really good
Your
CD.
wife?
Yep.
Co-editor,
partner. We do everything together. It's amazing she's not here right now. But she does a meditation based upon bioenergetic somatic movements. It's like when you were a kid, if you got upset, your body knew what to do. You would shake and throw a temper tantrum. But especially women, you're told to stop fidgeting, be still, go to your room, you know? And we do. We suppress all that. So when most people sit down to meditate, it might look on the outside like they're being really nice and quiet and going, but on the inside, it's a massive amount of mental gymnastics going on, because all of that energy that's been suppressed physically has to get out, and it works its way up to emotions and eventually to the mind, and the only way your mind can release it is through thoughts. So that's going to be a weekly thing that's happening up there, and we're going to have open mic, because there's a lot of musicians up there that need a place to play since the Buffalo Norton Hall burned down. We're also going to do movie nights, and we're going to have groups. And we're also working together with Ray and Mariana Love, because we're having this place that loves vibrant art. And they've been nice enough to donate the space, which is a nice space. And Mariana's art is the art that made it through the Paradise Fire.
That's a miracle, huh?
Yeah, it's a miracle, because on Upper Honey Run, every house on that street was burned to the ground. I mean, burned to the ground except for one. And it was a little wooden house with a big, huge deck right out over the canyon where the fire was. It should have burned down, you know. It didn't have a smart meter either, but that's another story. But her art was in there, and her art was also at 6268 Skyway, and everything burned down around there too. So we're trying to work with her and try to get her art out there, and there's a lot of digital G-clays, but the digital files were actually burnt too, so that's the end of it. She has a lot of her originals and the G-clays, which is a limited edition now. So we're going to be working with them and several other people. I mean, the Chamber of Commerce has stepped up. Butte County Small Business Development Center is really coming forth with chairs and office furniture. And
When do you hope to open?
a month ago.
When do you really hope to
Yeah,
open?
it looks like it's because we have to clean the place, but I don't want to use the water up there because there's benzene. There's like 175 miles of water line that was interacted with the heat that's releasing benzene. So I have a water tank now, so we can do the carpets and the walls and all that with fresh water. I didn't want to use bad water. It's okay for other things, flushing toilets and stuff, but you wouldn't want to use it or drink it by any stretch of the
Then you don't really
imagination.
want it to go in the aquifer either.
Yeah. So it's going to be a center for the community to feel that there's a center, a gravitational place, because we lost everything.
Yeah.
And as people come up there and start becoming part of it, I think it's going to, I've already been inspired 3 businesses to move back up to the Ridge. My friend Michael DiMartino, he does the Golden Road television show. He's going to be coming up there, and he has an amazing amount of people that he knows that actually have the knowledge and know-how to help put this community back together. Because it's going to take a lot of thought. It's going to be challenging. You got to work through all a lot of grief, and I've seen people crying in parking lots. Dara and I seen somebody. She was over at Italian Garden, leaning over a car, crying. And we went up to her and put our arms around her. Said, "What's wrong? Can we help?" She says, "Oh, I'm okay. I have my house and I'm just so tired of feeling bad." She said, "I feel really guilty, but So there's a lot of things to work through, but we're getting there."
Yes, that's wonderful you're doing this. A little public service announcement here, and then I'll ask Dr. Smith about this doctors group, what you're doing. For those of us still sorting out through losses after the Camp Fire disaster, the law firm of Baum, Heldman, Arishti, Goldman, and they work with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Bobby Kennedy. They want people to contact them, whether you rented or owned a home. They'll help with evacuation costs, medical costs, permanent injury, loss of pets, temporary housing, lost income, family photos, all that kind of thing. So if you would like to talk to that firm, the Lotus Guide has some of the cases on its website.
Yes.
And you can call 530-570-9616, and their website is www.calwildfireattorney.com. I'll spell it CAWILDFIRE attorney.com, and you can talk to them if you've lost any of those things in the campfire. So, Dr. Smith, what's this doctors group doing?
So it was brought to my attention by Mike Gainza. I met him through a networking group years ago, and he had this idea where he wants to put together a group of different practitioners from all different scopes to come to a center and actually work together as a team, go figure, for, again, the betterment of the patient, and in this case now, since the fires, the betterment of a community. And what we want to do is just be, as the city rebuilds, we want to be a part of that and integrate this kind of mindset into what's going to end up being the new paradise. Because it will be, it's going to be a different community. There's going to be some old mixed with some new, but together that makes a brand new place. And so we're trying to create a place where people have a center. They know they can come if they're hurting, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, energetically, and have a place to find a resource. And we want to provide that for the people of Paradise. We're looking at using it as a little mini storefront to try to provide clean products like clean makeup, and so we're looking for folks who know how to get a hold of those items, and so it can be like a little place where they can come and get clean food sources, clean, again, skincare, home care products, a place to detox, a place to cry and scream, and a place to come and begin their healing journey.
I do my mind power workshops about how to ground, center, achieve goals, do intuitive stuff, so I'm happy to help.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure we'll be reaching out because we're going to need a lot of help, as was mentioned.
Do you have any timelines?
Well, the some of it we can do virtually. I mean, we're kind of waiting for the center to have to be clean so we can start hosting some of these classes here. One of the first thoughts was to gather some participants who want to participate in this first kind of round with this donated product. The product is designed basically to help actually thicken and stimulate a healing effect in the lining of the gut, to help stimulate that microbiome like Dr. Ashley was talking about, oxygenate it basically, and get it trying to become healthier. Pardon me. And then, but we were thinking about walking people on how to use it, of hosting the classes there in the center once it's up and running. I don't know that we have an exact timeline. I just as soon as possible.
Looking at
Is this
May
the
1st.
same, you'd be in the same building?
Yeah. Yeah. So we actually got to go take a look at it a couple of weeks ago. We did a walkthrough, and yeah.
I'm
and
going to be
so-
cleaning it up next week, and we're going to have a ribbon cutting. Enterprise Record wants to come out and do a story, and Action News wants to do a story, Chico News and Review. So it's going to get a lot of attention. It'd be great if you'd come up and do. We have a Dr. Gayle in the Lotus Guide too.
Really?
Yeah. It's a
Oh,
coincidence.
that's my
huh?
twin. You didn't know I had a twin.
Dr. Gayle has been in our magazine since the very first time. And you know what? Adam Moes, he was there at a meditation in late 2003 or 4. There was some kind of a cosmic event, and we had a meditation at Cedar Grove, and it was to bring in what you want to do with your life. And Dara and I, we were thinking, okay, we have enough money to maybe buy a fixer-upper house or something, We just moved here, didn't know anybody. And we were at the meditation, and Adam Moes was there and some other people. And when Dara and I was driving home, we just started talking about a magazine, and we looked at each other and went,
Oh,
where did this come from, So it was born
From Cedar
from that
Grove.
meditation with Adam Moes. He played the, what do you call those? Didgeridoo.
Oh,
Yeah.
What a great story.
awesome.
Yeah. We have 3 minutes, and I want to end by talking about placebo, because traditional medicine, allopathic medicine, go, oh, it's just placebo, and pharmaceuticals go, oh, we hate it messes up all our studies because 30 to 40% of the people respond better to placebo than the pharmaceutical. And Harvard is doing studies that show that placebo works even if you know it's placebo. They call it open-ended placebo. So anybody have any thoughts about that? Because that seems to me that's the key to healing, is why does placebo work? Anybody want to take that?
I think that goes back, Dr. Gayle, to what we were talking about, how powerful the mind is. And you have to look at, where does it begin? It begins in the belief. It comes down through the creative medium, the energy field, and drops down into this physical body just to keep doing this. And so the placebo goes through, it's able to get in and break a cycle that the body isn't even aware that it's probably having. And that's why it works. And that's why a lot of techniques work. And then when certain therapies come out, immediately it's like a big group of people get well. And then it kind of shorts down, because what happens? It's the placebo effect. Whether it's a real drug or a pretend drug, it's our minds, it's our beliefs, it's a lot of what creates what we do and how we're going to heal.
Do you want to say a word?
I think it's fascinating too that placebo not only works really well, but then there's also studies coming out that are showing that just actually the belief of the healer or the practitioner actually also, yes,
if they're friendly.
Yes,
If
yes.
they're friendly.
If they're friendly and have confidence
Warm.
in what they're doing, and they believe 100% this is going to work for you, the actual outcomes of the patient skyrockets as well. So we've got multiple placebo effects that can go on actually with the patient, which is extremely exciting. And anything where we're getting wonderful results and yet having no side effects, it is incredibly inexpensive, free, and we're having great results with it. Why wouldn't we experiment with that and see where we can get with it? So I think
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's the confidence of the practitioner. It's the belief, like you mentioned earlier, Dr. Randy, as far as what does the patient believe the outcome will be. I mean, some people get in their own way. I've noticed, especially with like chronic pain syndrome sufferers, like fibromyalgia or something, they often, I feel this, they will almost self-identify, and as we're starting to get better, they almost retract.
Secondary gain.
Yeah, because they're like, but I am this, and what am I going to be when I don't have it?
I won't get people taking care of me in
You know
the
what I
same
mean?
way.
Yeah. And so I think helping a patient overcome that is a big part of the battle.
Right. Well, it's 7 o'clock. It's time for peanut butter and jelly time with Sandra. Thank you so much to our extraordinary
Thank you.
panel.
Namaste.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it.
Take it away.
Someone's homeopathic. Okay. Simone called and she wanted to talk to you, but it was like, right? So I told her to call at 7:05. So
She wants to
Oh.
yeah, she just said the homeopathic. I'm like, you know what? I just walked in here, but I know Simone. So yeah,
Thank you.
so it'll be, you can take it.
And she's gonna come in.
She'll call.
She called.
So you see it
Oh, okay.
flashing. There's press the-
Oh, thank
press-
you
yeah.
for doing that.